So I wanted to talk about the time I had to buy let's just say, a substance in order to ensure I wouldn't be shot. And yeah, let's just use substance. I know that's not very specific, but we're going to use that term to explain what I had to do in order to get out of that situation. So I'll sort of set the scene, right? I'll set the mood. I was in Newark, New Jersey, which Newark is okay. Newark is one of those cities that it's not really like Chicago, so Chicago has downtown, right? And then Chicago has all these neighborhoods, South Side, whatever, Old Block. And if you stay downtown, you're fine. But if you go in certain neighborhoods in Chicago, you could be in trouble. Sort of like Baltimore. Baltimore, if you stay downtown, which Baltimore has a pretty small downtown, to be honest. But if you stay downtown, you'd be okay. But if you start, going into some of the neighborhoods, I think Baltimore, it's North Baltimore. Like Philadelphia, it's North Philadelphia, like Kensington, right? Newark's just kind of all a mess. And I think there'll be some Newarkians. How do you say it? What are people from Newark called? I think some folks from Newark will probably correct me on this, and they probably have the right to. It's just kind of has a lot of areas that are not necessarily super appealing and safe. It's my opinion of Newark. I don't know. Maybe I've got this one wrong. I've been in Newark, twice? And also to set the mood, I was in Newark to go to the most dangerous areas of Newark and explore those areas. So whenever I speak poorly of these cities, it's important to keep in mind what I'm doing there, right? I'm not seeing the arts and cultures of Newark. I'm not going to the Newark Aquarium, if there is one. When I'm in Philadelphia, I'm not going to the Liberty Bell. I'm going to open air drug markets. So that's important. That's an important reference point to keep in mind when I'm talking about these cities. So here I am. Yeah, I won't say the neighborhood, but I was making a video. And the video I was making from my car, because it was an area I didn't particularly want to advertise my phone. Sometimes you just don't want to deal with it, right? I didn't want to have to be on high alert. Just didn't feel like it. It can be exhausting. If you're doing the five most dangerous areas of, let's just use any world city. It's exhausting, right? Because you're constantly worried about everything. People, your possessions, and your adrenaline's pumping in some of these areas, and it's just not the most comfortable feeling, right? You're out of you're not taking a stroll on the Portland, Maine waterfront. You're out there. You're putting yourself out there. So I didn't want to deal with it. I was in my car, and I was looking at this one house, abandoned building. So I was abandoned building hunting, and I do have sort of a matrix that I use. I do have a, what's the right word? I have a method to how I find these abandoned buildings, and it's just a ridiculous method. I pretty much just drive around. There's no secret to finding these great abandoned buildings, in my opinion. Some of the best abandoned buildings I've found have been completely by happenstance. I'll tell you a good method to use is to do some research of the city and find the most dangerous areas or find the most poverty-stricken areas and drive around until you see something interesting, or go on foot. On foot, yeah, you can see more on foot, but you can cover less ground. So here I am, and I'm making this video about this abandoned building, and the whole point of this video was to show that I am reasonable. The video was the building I wouldn't enter. That was the working title that I had. And so I was making the video, and I was pointing out why I was not going to go in that abandoned building, to show that I do have limits, to show that I do have some amount of caution, that I do have some amount of vulnerability, or I do have some amount of selectiveness. I won't just go into any abandoned building that I found. So that was the point of the video, and I was explaining why I was not going to go in that video. I was explaining why I was not going to go in that abandoned building, and the reasons were because I was kind of scoping it out, and I was kind of doing a stakeout. So I was in my car and I saw some tapestries. So the abandoned building, it was a 3-floor abandoned building, and there was stairs in the back that went to the second floor and then to the third floor, and graffiti on the outside of the building, windows all blown out. It's kind of asymmetrical. It's kind of sinking into the ground. It's clearly abandoned. It's clearly a building that somebody has just given up on. The city, the owner, it's at this point it's just condemned. But I saw some tapestries in blocking the light, blocking the visibility into 2 of the windows that were facing the street. And that's a great indicator of a building you might not want to go in. Why? So the reason is because what are they blocking out? Who's blocking that out? Somebody put those tapestries up there. They're not from the original owner. So that's a clue to you as an abandoned building hunter. Somebody's in there. Maybe not now, but somebody uses this building. 1,000,000%. And that's something you need to know. Obviously. For obvious reasons. And then I noticed, so I walk up to it, and I got out of my car, and I'm walking around, and I'm trying listening, is there any voices inside? And there's some very new liquor bottles all around the outside, like they had been thrown from the second floor. How are they new? You can tell a new bottle from an old bottle, right? An old bottle's it's going to be faded. The label's going to be, exposed to the sun and the elements. These were fresh. So somebody's drinking around this place. Okay, so that's point 2. That's the second reason to not enter. But I'm still waiting for a third because, I still was thinking at this point that I was going to go in. So I went back to my car and I'm still staking it out. I'm like, I'm going to see if there's any movement in and out of this building. And there was a lot of movement. So what I saw was individuals going, just strolling like they own the place, using the back stairs and going into the apartment. They'd be in there for about 5 minutes and then they'd leave. And then a new group of folks would come and they would do the same exact thing. So what are they doing? I'm not going to say it, but I think you can elicit what I what I mean. It's not good. It's nothing. They're not neighbors stopping by to say hi. Do you need some help weeding your garden? So that's when I say, okay, this is one I'm not going to go into. And I made the video, and I was going to post it as evidence that I'm somewhat sane. So what do? I do the opposite, and I decide to go in. So, yeah. So that is, don't do that. That's reckless, and it's stupid. So this is one of those, do as I say, not as I do type of thing, which I have a lot of that. But, at this point I have a lot, it's my 100th abandoned building. I've got experience with this. I think I know what I'm doing. And I think I'm prepared for whatever's inside. So I decided to go right for it. I wasn't gonna, if I was gonna commit, I was gonna commit fully. So I decided to commit in the ways that the other folks were entering the building. And that was through the back stairs and walk in the door that I had seen, the last 3 or 4 groups do. And I walked in, and there's a guy to my left passed out on whatever, and there's a walkway straight to a guy in a chair, and it's sort of like the chair I had. It was a wooden chair, like a wooden old antique chair, and he's just kind of chilling. And there's to his left, to his right was a couch that was pretty well used, that you wouldn't want to, wouldn't want that to be the decor of your living room. And then to the right were these 2 kind of lazy boy chairs that were also well used. And there's gents in all of them, and just kind of chilling. And they did have firearms. And I walked in confidently, like I like I owned the place. And it felt like I was like in no man's land, and had just jumped over the fence, and I was escaping prison. And there's that no man's land where the guards can still see you, and you're running, because you're trying to escape this prison, and then all the spotlights go on you. That's what I felt. It felt like there was like 19 spotlights on me. To be honest, they didn't overreact. They didn't underreact. They just kind of lifted their heads, looked at me. But they were like, their eyes were on me. They were focused on what I was gonna do next. So I just nonchalant walk up to the guy in the antique chair, and I don't know how to order this substance. I don't even know if order is the right word. What is the word for this? It doesn't matter. You're not ordering, a Dorito taco from Taco Bell. You're not ordering, a McChicken. You're ordering something else. So I don't know how. I didn't know how. I carry 20 ones on me. It's sort of like this OCD thing. When I'm in abandoned buildings in dangerous cities, I don't carry my wallet. I carry 20 singles or, a 5, just for loose change, because it's good to have some cash. Sometimes the displaced are in abandoned buildings, and I'll give them a couple bucks to try and neutralize the situation and be like, hey man, you need some help? Let me give you a couple bucks. Go get a coffee. So I had 20 on me, and I like I'm a hero, walk up to the guy in the antique chair, because he seemed to be the alpha. He seemed to be the group leader. And I'm kind of scratching myself, and I look sketchy, and I got a flat brim and a hoodie up. That's sort of my go-to in just about every city on the planet. And I'm kind of scratching, and I was actually nervous. I think that's why I was like trying to do something with my hands, because I didn't know what to do with my hands. They were just like awkwardly to my side. So I was a bit nervous, so I'm just kind of like scratching my face. And I just said, I just need 20. I just need 20. I just kept repeating, I just need 20. And I was hoping that he would be like, oh, this guy wants $20 of this. I did that wrong. I know I did. I mean, I had to have looked suspect. I had to have looked out of my element. As much as my ego likes to pretend to say that I looked like everybody else, I didn't. And he didn't say anything, just looks at me. And his buddy in the corner is like, Trig, you don't know him, is what he said. Trig. Maybe Trigger, maybe short for Trigger. That's where my head went. I was like, Trig, that's kind of a cool nickname, Trigger. I want to be called Trig. And I just had to say something. So I said, Trig, everybody knows you. So it came out. Everybody knows you, Trig. Come on, man. You're famous. So that's what I said. I said, Trig, everybody knows you. And Trig, or Trigger, looks to the side and is just kind of head nods towards me. And then I ordered what I ordered. And, we did the exchanging of currency, and that was it. That's the end of the story. This one kind of fizzles out, doesn't it? I think, I always expect the audience wants, stories to end with a gunshot wound to the upper right chest. But so, transaction complete. I walk out, and I go down the stairs, and my car's across the street still, but I did a huge, semicircle. I walked like 50. I don't know. I walked like 500 meters up, and then I walked 500 meters back to my car to give it 45 minutes, a good 45 minutes. And I'm back in my car, and I disposed of the substance. And let's just pretend it was a bottle of whiskey. So I emptied the bottle of whiskey, the substance, and I was on my merry way. The lesson here is there's not always a lesson. A lot of the times with me, the lesson is don't do what I do, because it's reckless, and it's gonna put you in a position you don't want to be in. I think that's the lesson.